Welcome to eDiscovery Leaders Live, where I get a chance to chat with luminaries in eDiscovery and related areas. This broadcast is sponsored by Reveal-Brainspace, the industry's leading AI eDiscovery platform. Don't forget to subscribe to watch me, George Socha, weekly with leaders in eDiscovery. Thank you for tuning in.
Welcome to eDiscovery Leaders Live, hosted by ACEDS and sponsored by Reveal. I am George Socha, Senior Vice President of Brand Awareness at Reveal. Typically, each Friday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern, I host an episode of eDiscovery Leaders Live where I get the chance to chat with luminaries in eDiscovery and related areas. This week, however, we are broadcasting live from ILTACON. This is day 2, our first interview of the day. Before I introduce our guest, I want to remind you that past episodes are available on the Reveal website. Go to revealdata.com, select resources, then select eDiscovery Leaders Live. Our guest today, the first episode of 5 today, is Chip Delany, who is Strategy Director at Lineal, born in Australia, even with the name Chip.
Yeah.
But recently become an American.
Yep.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Yes. As I said, he's the strategy director at Lineal with primary expertise in comprehensive integrated forensics, electronic discovery, and document review services for complex legal matters. He also focuses on AI modeling for understanding unstructured data, both at the corporate and at the law firm level. In terms of likes, I'm told American national parks. Are you going to hit all of them?
Not yet. I haven't hit up Utah, but I'm obsessed with Colorado and New Mexico.
Well, there are how many parks to visit?
Too many.
You got to hit them all.
Yeah.
You got your card yet to put the stamps on?
No, I haven't done that.
Oh, come on. You got to do that.
I didn't know that there was a card. I was just driving willy-nilly into parks and being like, oh, this one looks good.
Go to the park,
Okay.
get the stamp.
All right.
Or it's a passbook, actually. So you get the stamp.
Oh, it's kind of like...
Right, same idea.
Yeah.
So you got to get cracking because there are, between the parks and the various other things, I think 394 or something like that, places you now need to visit.
Okay, challenge accepted.
Yeah, okay. Go ahead. And other likes, you haven't forgotten Australia entirely, have you?
No, I'm obsessed with the Wallabies. I've been Wallabies are Australia's rugby union team, the national team. And the kind of funny thing is, if you're like a rugby fan, you've got your professional team you go for, like the Packers, for example.
Yeah.
But the real thing everyone cares about, like if you're from New Zealand, you really care about the All Blacks. If you're from Australia, you really care about the Wallabies.
And there should be no confusion. The Wallabies dominate the All Blacks.
No, we really don't. I can't say that. I can't lie like that.
Okay.
There's no way I'm getting away with it, hey.
But you still hope, right?
Yeah. Every year I hope. And then every year my dreams come crushing down when we get defeated in Eden Park.
Yeah, it gives you something more to wish for the next year.
It does, yeah.
Yeah. So let's turn to the topics. And I think we want to talk about growth in legal, and especially innovation.
Yeah, absolutely.
What are you seeing?
One thing I've noticed, and I don't know if it's out of the pandemic or just out of realization law firms are having to sort of explore more about, what is possible with data and how can we innovate for our clients. I've noticed a lot of law firms, large ones, are developing legal innovation roles and kind of like little squads where you get someone who's a seasoned expert, that's been in the e-discovery field maybe for a decade or more, and then they build a little team around them of maybe 3 or 4 people and go on kind of a roadshow of the firm and all the different practice groups to understand what they're doing and how can we innovate and use what we already know about managing and understanding data and exploring it in different ways. That's fascinating because, if you think of the kind of conference we're at and where all of this started over a 10, 20-year span, sort of the big things that have changed it and moved it along. Now it's at a stage where people are getting creative because we're used to the technology enough. We understand new things like AI and how to use them in more pragmatic ways. So that gives us confidence to go and look at practice groups that aren't traditionally using e-discovery services, because everyone's generating data.
Right.
But how can you create value in new and different ways? And if you're a law firm, you want to be bold like that for your client and encourage them to explore what can happen if they apply AI technology to capital markets applications or M&A or really any other kind of business function which isn't currently using it, like litigation is.
How much of these innovation efforts are purely marketing, how much window dressing, and how much is real?
We won't know until you've had at least a couple of years and seeing what the law firms actually do with these innovation groups. One thing that's really important, if they are going to succeed, then service providers and technology companies need to identify people going into these roles and encourage and support them. Hey, we see that you're doing something new and it looks like it's a bold initiative by the firm.
Mm-hmm.
We really support that because what we're doing is all about trying to create innovative ways to give you guys. I'm talking sort of broadly if you're a vendor or a tech provider. What can we do to help you? And don't look for cash straight away. Look for the relationship and to encourage that person to grow in that role and to help them win and succeed. And if you help that person who's been given this kind of little innovation task force at this giant law firm or wherever, or a corporation, I'm seeing, director of legal innovation roles pop up in different corporations.
Yep.
Then you're going to have a great relationship come out of that. But as we start to actually implement, these ideas that we're having of using AI or applying legal services in non-traditional ways, and they become something which can be repeated and become a real service line, well, you've built that with that group or that person, and then you can grow that into something much bigger. So, again, what started off as printing and large scale, just sort of getting documents and warehouses and forensic collections years ago, then migrated into what it is now. Well, in 10 years' time, given the right support behind these little roles that are popping up, you could have what is now a 5-person innovation team at, Skadden or wherever, become a 100-person department that is very sophisticated in how it works with all of their large corporate clients' needs, whether it's AML, whether it's M&A, whether it's monitoring and compliance aspects. But that can only be achieved if you give that person in their little group the support, because they've got a mountain to climb in educating their attorneys internally. Everything that we know and live day to day about data and strategy and whatnot that we're dealing with. We get into a conversation about, AI, and then we bring in things like we were talking about just before about blockchain and what does it mean for IP and those sort of things. Well, we're talking about these things kind of all the time, even though we might be focusing on e-discovery is still the main sort of business line.
Right.
But if we're helping the corporate client, then that 5-person team turns into a 100-person team. That's an enormous opportunity for business for both sides.
Yeah.
And it ultimately benefits the final end client, which is a corporation. Because some fun stats that I love to reel off. So about 90% of businesses struggle with unstructured data, have no real plan and understanding of how to really manage and deal with it.
And that's across the board.
That's
right?
across the board. So unstructured data really is the huge challenge. And just to give you an idea of one of the big challenges has been the explosion in all sorts of different sources of unstructured data from chat apps. So WhatsApp, as an example, they produce on a day average about 2 billion messages around the world in 160 countries in about 80 different languages, right? So that's one app. Admittedly, it's a very large one, but
it's only one of many.
Right. And we're noticing sort of the explosion of this. And what this says is you need a really good way to understand data. You need a much better way to be able to quickly get through it and identify points of value. And a point of value can be something that makes money for a business, but it can also be something that eliminates risk. That's sort of the fundamental principle of value creation is everything that kind of grows it is good. And anything outside of that isn't really creating value unless it reduces risk. So, No, there's a lot to be had there, but the stats certainly say that unstructured data is still a massive challenge that hasn't been solved.
I take it from what you said, just to be clear, that you all are working with law firms and corporations on this front, working on the innovation side of things. How does that process look like? How does an engagement start? What steps do you go through?
Like dating and establishing trust and asking for someone's hand in marriage. It's the same thing. You have to be honest in terms of what the technology that you have can actually do. You can't promise the world. You have to be patient and identify what it is that they're trying to achieve. So, you might be someone who's building, you have a big idea and you really think this big idea could be great. But if it's not in line with what their mandate is and what they want to achieve, then it really doesn't matter, right? It's like coming into any kind of relationship and just talking about yourself every time you go to dinner. Really understanding, okay, they've got this innovation group. What is it about? Maybe it's about just knowing where all the data is and what it means, right? Which is a massive undertaking. And then from there, it can be about other things. But, ultimately you want to do something that helps your business and their business at the same time with a philosophy to grow it in new and exciting directions. So if you've got a really exciting idea, what is something you can help this innovation group with right now that matters to them, right? And that could be these people want to establish their roles in the law firm and grow this into a bigger group where it's, 10, 20, eventually 100 people. It could be that, each one of these individuals, they're very passionate about this. It doesn't have a whole lot of oxygen in the law firm. So you've got to help them in their roadshow efforts to teach and educate and coach. And then that might mean that, you're investing time and resources in the form of team members, them traveling to go meet with these people. Maybe you're not seeing revenue from that for a while. But the point is you're going to see it because you're going to be the person there working, helping them achieve what they want to achieve. And they're going to love that. And then they're going to want to support your efforts. But working collaboratively with those ideas is key.
Yeah, I think of our middle son is launching his first 2 startups.
Oh, yeah?
Which is great, but it's going to be an experience for him.
Oh, for sure.
He needs legal help. And the first firm he was matched up through the incubator program he was in said, well, we'll give you some standard forms for free, 5 hours of legal work for free, and then a 15% discount on everything after that. But their discounted rates were $1,100 to $400 an hour. These guys are just starting up.
Yeah.
What you're doing is taking an approach very different from that. It sounds like you are taking the long view, investing in helping, like with him, get him up and going. And maybe he'll succeed and maybe he won't. But there will be those who do succeed. And when that happens, everyone sees the payoff.
Absolutely. If you've got any kind of appetite, if you can identify people with any kind of appetite to want to try bold and new things, and they're enthusiastic, that's really in short supply. People with an imagination is in pretty short supply. And then someone with enough grit to say, I want to try and I might fail and that's okay. That person's actually kind of special because, being able to stomach failure and think of it as just a part of growth on the journey, which is really what it is. I don't think it's a negative thing. I think it's a kind of a positive thing because
you never fail. Have you really tried hard enough?
Oh, if I face plant on something, I feel real stupid right then and there.
Of course.
And I remember when I first came over to the States, I came over here for a girl, worked out. And I came into this industry, and I joined XLP. I had no idea what e-discovery was. I remember one of my first calls where it was maybe like a month, 2 months in. And Jay Lieb was the guy who hired me, right?
Yeah.
And Jay Lieb's kind of a legend, really has his head around everything to do with AI and e-discovery and how it works and all the functions of it. And there was a call that, he had something, this was startup mode, right? So everyone's been pulled in 1,000 directions.
Yep.
He's like, okay, you take this one. And it was with an LSP. And oh my God, I bombed hard. I I've never done stand-up comedy before, but it felt like bombing on a stage.
Ouch.
Because I just didn't have a clue what I was talking about, right?
Yeah.
I found out what e-discovery was 2 months ago. But that failure was important because it was like, okay.
It helped you figure out.
Oh my God,
where
yeah. I
to
was like,
go.
wow, I was that exposed. Okay.
Yep.
And then, you have the appetite to build up. So point being, if people are willing to try exciting things and they're willing to go after things, folks should take note in the industry and support it holistically to say, hey, Jeff over there is having a go, or Sarah over there is having a go at this sort of bold idea. Let's see if we can help them by letting people know they have a bold idea. That's for free. You don't really have to, let your networks know if someone's trying something. Support their effort to communicate. They ultimately have to take the lead and present that idea and do all the follow-up. But as a community, we can support it. And it's going to, for every good idea that comes through, we're all going to benefit of it. And we could benefit through directly using the service of the technology. We could benefit of it from getting our own ideas, or we could build out a similar, idea. Like when Iris built out, or came up with the managed service idea, right?
Yeah.
Well, that changed the way then a lot of
spawned
firms.
an entire market when they did that.
Right.
Yeah.
So the next person with an idea like that, it could be someone who's 25 years old, working at whatever as a junior, and they're enthusiastic and they're thirsty for knowledge of all this stuff. And then, because they're looking at everything with fresh eyes, they might say, hey, why don't we use this infrastructure we already have over here to do this? Because doesn't it just, help us understand this thing? And don't these people need to, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
But that can only really work out if everyone's kind of getting behind it. Yeah.
So how do we help then that next generation of lawyers and legal professionals develop and succeed and bring these great ideas for all of us to take advantage to?
I think, you have things like ILTA and Clock and Legal Week. I think there should, each one of these trade shows should have some sort of I don't know whether you say competition or some sort of a forum where, people are able to come, pitch original ideas or whatever idea it is. I don't know if Shark Tank is the right sort of format for it. But, the environment is that everyone kind of sees what the idea is and supports it and adds to it as they can. We're all very tempted to be critical about something and, did you see Bill's idea? Yeah, that won't work. Well, we don't know that it won't work.
Right.
Bill might need a bit of help. Bill might need to change a few things here and there, but eventually it will work.
And some ideas do work.
They absolutely do. So there's, community is incredibly important. For one, creating the stage for people to be able to present new ideas so that these legal innovation groups can source information and learn. And ultimately, I think it will help the conferences grow and remain relevant, if you're able to feed that sort of thing. Because like we were talking about before, you can't just have, we're going to repeat, let's talk about privilege, because it's an easy thing to sort of set up.
Right.
Well, if it's easy, maybe it's not valuable.
Right. And there's talking about it and there's a discussion that adds value to the
discussion. Exactly. Yeah. So maybe,
Mm-hmm.
if there is a conversation to be had about privilege, it's privilege and related to the metaverse and identifying, that's interesting because it's bringing in concepts people aren't used to talking about.
Yep.
Yeah.
Education. We need much more and much better education.
We need much more and much better. And we could be talking about any industry, and we could be talking about education is paramount because it enables communication. The one hand washes the other there. So education needs to be something where it's a collective effort. I don't think different associations should compete with each other on what the right content is. I think that's kind of schoolyard childish. Folks are saying, oh no, because we're in this part of the country, this is the way it should be. Oh, well, we're in this. It's like, come on, what are we doing here?
There are enough challenges to take on.
Yeah,
fight over that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So education should be a collaborative effort as much as supporting innovation of people trying to build up and do new things. And education, if we get better at it, communicating, we'll get better at. We'll be able to solve challenges. If we just think about e-discovery, the amount of partners and law firms that everyone wants to do business with, but we struggle to communicate the end value in terms that they understand. Right. And you know what I think the real reason is? It's because we're not empathizing with their perspective necessarily.
What
So
stand in their shoes.
Yeah.
What do they care about?
exactly, what does this person care about? And I need to focus and talk about what they care about. And then I'll be able to communicate effectively to them. And then once I can actually communicate effectively to them, then we can have a conversation that's educating and educating each other. That's the other thing. It's a two-way street.
Well, so it sounds straightforward, but how do you accomplish that?
Okay. So you accomplish that with a few things. One, patience. Don't force your ideas onto someone. Understand what they want, right? Understand what they're thinking about. Be patient, and then introduce concepts and ideas as they actually are relevant to that particular person and what they're doing. That's the first thing. Otherwise, we're kind of like, if I'm in front of someone and I'm just, my idea, I may as well be a spam email coming in and just saying, I'm doing great things. I've sent that email before. I'm doing great things. And you should come here and do great things with me. It's like, well, you see that email and what do you do with it, right? But if it's exactly, that's what happens.
Yeah.
And quite often it's not even clicking on the email, it's just clear it out. But if it's, hey Sarah, I was looking at your profile. I saw, and this is where effort essentially comes into it. I saw you wrote or you co-authored a paper on this, and that's really interesting for these reasons, that there's going to be challenges I see. I'd like to grab a coffee and talk to you and hear more about your ideas on this. What you're doing then is you're establishing an opportunity for that person to communicate what they're interested in, and you're able to learn, and people actually gravitate towards that because that person might not have much oxygen for their ideas in their office where they're working.
Right. They're desperate for an audience somewhere.
Yeah.
People who want to hear about them, what they want to do, and give a response, a reaction, a suggestion, whatever it might be. Give some support.
Absolutely. And here's another thing which kind of ties together the idea of that innovation group, the law firm that we're starting to see, and education. Helping them sell, right, internally. Because they've got ideas to sell.
Yeah.
So if you're a salesperson and you understand how to communicate effectively and how to sell ideas and so on and so forth, wouldn't it be an amazing opportunity to go to these folks and say, hey, you've got this initiative and you're trying to sell these ideas internally to these people who aren't receptive to changing their ways for one reason or another. I sell. Why don't I help you communicate this message and work with your team so that, you guys are doing this amazing stuff here. You don't really need my help in understanding the law and those sort of things.
Right.
But it might be worthwhile for us to talk about how to communicate and pitch these things so that it's being as effective as possible as a message internally, because they might be making the same mistake. In fact, they probably are.
They probably
not
are.
Empathizing and just saying, hey, I've got this great idea. Why don't you understand?
If I think back, law school,
Yeah.
as a summer associate, as an associate, as a partner, did I ever receive training in how to do sales effectively? Did I ever have anyone to guide me and help me? No. At most, I would follow along and carry the bags of someone who was, from my perspective, mysteriously successful.
Yeah.
Right.
Because you've gone through this whole process. And Jeannie Sommer explained this to me. She said, essentially, you've got someone who goes in and they're an associate and they're just working real hard, getting all the processes of the process of doing law. But then when they want to make that change to try and become an equity partner, well, then they have to essentially start selling, and their entire focus goes in a different direction.
Yep.
And, that's uncharted territory. Some people, it's very natural.
Right. And
But-
those are the ones who then succeed. But
Exactly.
for others of us, we don't know what to do. No one's ever helped us figure that out.
So if you're a salesperson, wouldn't it be a really good idea to take a very enthusiastic associate, senior associate, and grow and say, hey, I've got these skills. I see you. What do you want to achieve? Like, I really want to become partner at litigation. Great.
Yeah.
You're going to have to make a transition at some stage where you need to build relationships at these banks or these pharmaceutical companies, and you need to know how to sell, but you're not selling at any stage before that.
So you're talking about a very different form of education than we typically hear about it, where, it's not CLE.
No.
It's not classes on how to use a product. It's really how to build your career and build your practice.
Exactly. What does this individual want? Okay, they want to become, and this is just an example, and there could be a bunch of things.
Yeah.
Okay, this individual wants to become an equity partner at this law firm, right? Great. My mission is trying to help that person become an equity partner at this law firm. Because guess what happens if that happens?
good things follow.
Exactly.
Right.
They're going to be like, gee, this guy's amazing. He really helped me get all this done. And I'm on track to become the equity partner now. And now I know how to pitch and communicate and introduce them to your network, right?
Right.
If you got some corporate relationships, hey, such and such, let's all go to lunch and just talk about ideas. And those things start to build in a positive direction. And what have you done? You've made a really valuable relationship that will then talk about you in those kind of glowing references. And you can help a bunch of people with this.
And you've done a mitzvah. You've helped someone advance in their career.
Exactly.
Not a bad thing.
Not a bad thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any final thoughts for us here?
It's good to have everyone back.
It is, isn't it?
You know?
Yeah.
Kind of weird, but I'm glad we're on the other side of all this now.
We were talking in a setting like this last year
We were.
in Las Vegas. It was a completely different experience.
Completely different experience. It's good to see. It was good to see the trade hall full. It was good to see everyone kind of getting around, and some people wearing capes last night. I didn't. I'm sorry, everyone.
Yeah.
It's not that I'm against dressing up. I've done it as a judge before.
You have, that's right. I've seen
and in Halloween outfits too. Yeah, we were kind of nutty in the
did.
pandemic there.
You did that at an ACEDS meeting in our Chicago office.
I did, yeah.
Yes.
I actually was talking to someone last night. I think there should be a great debate that's part of the ILTA conference every year. And when you have that Monday night, you know, and people are having drinks and getting to know each other, why not take like some of the personalities, like the Milners of this world, and whatever, and have a debate
when they're not dancing in their balconies.
when they're not dancing on the balconies, and have a debate where you've got these people that have really understand what they're doing. You could set like kind of an actual lively topic, not something that people are just going to agree with each other on, something that creates
something
real
with
interest,
some energy and activity, and
like that metaverse concept, right? Things which we don't know the answers to, but wouldn't it be great? And people can have a beer and watch that, and it could be fun.
Yeah.
And you add something to these conferences that's not just the content.
Shake it up, liven it up, bring something different to it.
And people want to get more involved every year.
And maybe help them sell the conference better.
Exactly. Yeah.
Bringing that same perspective to another direction.
Critically. Yeah. Because if you're in a place like this, like National Harbor, you want to make the conference an experience, a massive event where no one in DC is making an excuse that, it's 20 minutes down the road. No, you want to be like, ILTA's here this year? Yeah, no, I'll definitely get down to that. Yeah.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it, mate. As always.
Chip is Strategy Director at Lineal. I am George Socha. This has been eDiscovery Leaders Live, hosted by ACEDS and sponsored by Reveal. And once again, Chip, thanks so very much.
No worries.